Hey there. I didn't hear you come in. And I guess I forgot to lock the door. I'm just trying to get some cleaning done around here on my day off. You know, it's so hard to try to find the motivation to clean my own games, especially when I do it at the store 6 days a week. But you know what? It's break time. And besides, it'd be rude of me not to try to entertain my guests, right? But what to play? This looks promising. The Twisted Tales of Spike McFang. You know, I was told by a friend this was a great game, so I picked it up, but I still haven't played it. Killer garlic, spinning capes, and a cellular phone-wielding vampire. Well, I'm sold. Bulletproof software. Where do I know that from? The info is pretty scarce on this one. It's no wonder why I never had it as a kid. Issue 61 of Nintendo Power had a 5-page review of the game and extended it to the back of the poster. With the Twisted Tales of Spike McFang, Bulletproof Software takes a traditional adventure game and adds an offbeat character with unusual skills to give it a fresh feel. Bulletproof Software. Man, that's driving me crazy. I know that name from somewhere. Oh, and also, to derail for a moment, according to Ben Salinas, the number one reason why Super Nintendo rules is because it's not Sega.
Anyway, other than that, all I can really tell you is that Spike McFang was released in June of 1994 and was a sequel to this PC Engine game called Make Prince Dorobachin. Sorry if I butchered that. The game was a side-scrolling platformer that was only released in Japan and looks to have had the same protagonist.
Well, let's give Spike McFang a go, shall we? Please silence your cellular phones.
Ugh, Bulletproof Software. There it is again. Before you even press start, the game cuts from the title screen and gets the player caught up on the story. It explains that the 3 islands of Vladimosco each have their own leader, Dracumin, Vampra, and Von Hessler, who gets greedy and wants to take over the other 2 leaders' islands. During the battle for Vampra's island, her daughter Camellia manages to escape to try and find Dracumin's son, Spike McFang, who is off training to be a warrior.
I haven't even started playing the game yet, and I can already tell these vampire references are going to be a problem. But luckily, I came prepared.
After hitting start and choosing a save file, the game finally begins, after another cutscene. This time it shows Spike arriving on Fighter Island with his buddy Professor Steam, who are both oblivious to the problem occurring back home. Camellia runs into the scene, lets them know about Vladimosco being under attack, and then tries to enlist the help of Spike, who turns her down because he doesn't want to lose the security deposit on his training lessons. I found out quickly that this game definitely has a sense of humor. Camellia, now irked off, heads off to Ratville to try and find someone who's willing to help her right away. Professor Steam then sends Spike on his way to complete the training, letting him know he can always use his cellular phone if he needs to reach him. Professor Steam uses his cellular phone to give Spike hints throughout the game, although they are few and far between. Spike also receives a call from him each time he levels up. With everything now explained, you finally gain control of Spike and head off to complete the tutorial level of the game. On the next screen, we meet Spike's teacher, Ching Kao Quing, who also goes by the name Clarence. Through the tutorial, we learn that Spike can jump and has 2 different attack types. His melee attack is a spin move that, if used too many times in a row, will cause Spike to get dizzy and become stunned for a moment. Spike's range attack consists of tossing his hat at enemies. The drawback to this is that it requires him to stand still and charge it for a second before it can be released. After completing all the training lessons, Clarence has one final test for Spike, a sparring challenge against his magic cane. Once the cane is defeated, Spike is given an empty box as a reward. Sweet! The game then has a short cutscene informing the player that Hydra, Von Hessler's second-in-command, has invaded Castle Dracumen and has put her daughter Felina in charge. With his training now complete, Spike heads back home to check on his parents. At this point in the game, you are given your first opportunity to use a shop. Here you can find hat upgrades and buy cards to put in your empty box. The cards are power-ups in the game and include health boosts, teleports, and attack bonuses. After making all his purchases, Spike then heads to the castle, battling his way through killer cloves of garlic? Once Spike arrives at the castle, he finds the doors locked. However, a conveniently timed cellular phone call from Professor Steam informs him that Spike's pet Sid, who kinda resembles a dinosaur, knows where the key is. After finding the key and gaining access to the castle, Spike begins to make his way through it while fighting zombies, feline fighters, a giant spider, and something called a metal muncher. He eventually finds his mother being held captive in a cell. She warns Spike that the creature that has taken over the castle is a level 4, and that he should be careful. I guess you can't get much more direct than that. It was also right about at this point in the game that I realized it was important to be a higher level than the enemies, as it makes fighting them way easier. Because of this, I found myself clearing every screen to gain as much XP as possible, and even farming for it a little. Up next is the game's first boss fight against Felina. Upon her defeat, she offers Spike a token to spare her life. It turns out to be a trap, but Spike is saved by Von Hessler's son Rudy, who wants to help because he feels his father is under a curse. With Spike's mom now free, he returns to the town only to receive a message from Ratville saying Camellia has gotten sick. The message also requests that Spike and Rudy go there to help her. Before leaving though, I made one last stop at the shop to buy a new hat and stock up on health cards. On the way to Ratville, Professor Steam's car gets crushed by a big boulder, so Spike and Rudy head out on foot. This area of the game has multiple dead ends and forces Spike to fight more garlic cloves, this time of the desert variety.
They really got creative with the garlic, didn't they?
After making their way to Ratville, Spike and Rudy learn that in order to heal Camellia, they need water from the Kalela Desert. But of course getting the water will not be an easy task, as it's in a pyramid guarded by one of Von Hessler's lackeys named Croc, who just so happens to be a level 7. On the way to the desert, we encounter the only platforming area of the game, which is hopping on some clouds. And after making their way to the end and falling from those clouds, Spike and Rudy land in the desert and begin making their way to the pyramid. Once at the base of the pyramid, they encounter Croc, who, you guessed it, is a giant crocodile, which apparently there must be a lot of in Vladimosco, because Spike finds it necessary to ask him if his name is Croc. After losing the fight, he lets Spike know that if he wants the water, he still has to defeat the desert root at the top of the pyramid. So off to the top of the pyramid we go, this time battling rap warriors along the way. Why wouldn't they just call them mummies? At the top we have our run-in with the desert root, a giant tree that when defeated returns the water to the desert. Via water geyser, Spike makes his way back to Ratville, and with Camellia now recovered, she replaces Rudy as Spike's companion. Professor Steam then rolls up with a new car, and also announces that they have discovered a tunnel to Vampire's Island. Spike makes a joke about how that's convenient, and then they head off to the next area. Upon reaching the island, we find that it has been covered in ice, and learn this is from one of Von Hessler's minions called the Freezer, who was held up in an ice palace nearby. After upgrading my hat again and stocking up on cards, I began making my way there, taking on waves of python bunnies, and are you kidding me? Frozen garlic cloves?
Speaking of garlic, I better go find mine or my wife is gonna kill me. It's Italian night. Huh. How did you get over here?
Right before Spike and Camellia reach the ice palace, they run into a stranger who lets them know that the freezer's weakness is, and no joke here, chicken noodle soup. After Spike walks off the screen, the stranger is revealed to be Hydra, Von Hessler's second in command. She wants to help Spike so that once the freezer is defeated, she can take over Vampra's island for herself. To take a quick break from the storyline here, I just wanted to mention that right after getting whooped on my first trip to the ice palace, I decided to grind out a few levels of XP. This took me about 45 minutes, but made all the difference when I attempted it again. And with those newly gained levels, Spike re-enters the ice palace, stumbles across the chicken noodle soup, and makes short work of the freezer. Once the freezer is out of the way, Vampra's island begins to thaw, which gives Spike and crew access to an airship that will take them to Castle Von Hessler. Before leaving though, I'm given the point of no return speech that I've heard before in games, meaning the end is near. After going shopping for the final time, Spike and his crew board the airship only to have it catch fire and crash into the jungle before it reaches the castle. Camellia jumps out just before it hits the ground and sprains her ankle. This causes Rudy to become Spike's companion again. They begin making their way through the jungle maze, which requires the right direction to be picked 7 times in a row, while fighting forest garlic cloves along the way. When the right path is figured out, which took me a while, Spike fights another boss by the name of Moray. As it turns out, Moray was pretty much a pushover, and after defeating him, I hit the level cap, which apparently is 15. The jungle maze then continues, requiring another 5 correct turns, after which Spike finally gets to enter Castle Von Hessler and begin the last sequence of the game. Up first is the fight against Hydra, which plays out like most of the other boss battles. She has 2 forms to get past, neither of which gave me any trouble. With Hydra out of the way, the final battle against Von Hessler can finally take place. Like Hydra, he has 2 different forms, and since he is level 15 and 16, he poses quite a challenge. When Spike beats Von Hessler's final form, the thing that was possessing him pops out and flies away to go possess Camellia. Spike and Rudy chase after it, but by the time they catch up to it, Camellia has already defeated it, thus ending Spike's adventure. And with everything now back to normal on the Vladimovsko Islands, Spike, Rudy, and Camellia return home to their parents.
And that's the Twisted Tales of Spike McFang. I really enjoyed playing through it and thought it was a really well done and polished game. The only downside I can think of is that I'm not the only one that thinks it's awesome, as Spike McFang tends to fetch over $100 for just the cartridge. And given that it only took me around 6 hours to finish, means there's not a whole lot of gameplay for the money. I guess it's too bad we can't time travel back to 1994 because it would have made the perfect weekend rental from Blockbuster. But don't let the brief experience that is Spike McFang discourage you, and if you get a chance to play it, please do. I doubt you'll be disappointed. Well, I'm going to try to get some more cleaning done and see where that garlic ran off to this time. Thanks for stopping by, and be excellent to each other. How could I not remember that?
Oh good, you haven't left yet. That gives me a chance to say thanks for watching the video. And if you enjoy my content and would like to see more, please click the like and subscribe buttons below. And don't forget to click that notification bell too, so you won't miss any of my videos. See you next time!